Yep, my name is Tri Minvo or Min Jae Va, as Vietnamese people might say. Um, Born in South Vietnam around Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. Came here when I was 4. My dad was already here. My mom and I moved in once he found a job in Minnesota. Since then, um, in terms of things that have shaped me a lot, punk rock music is a major one. Um, Eddie Huang, the guy who wrote a memoir called Fresh Off the Boat, which became a TV series, but I love the memoir 10,000 times more, also shapes me. And now today, I would tell people like I'm really immersed in leftist theory and trying to get into practices, knowing that the leftist world or like world, these political ideologies are very white predominant as most things are in the US. And so trying to navigate all that. How these corrupt systems are able to push this tone and this lie, but this lie that many people are invested in of that we are a civil society, that all these things are all these horrible, malicious, inhumane tragedies that have been happening, that continue to happen, are merely an accident in what is otherwise a reformable society and way of living and structures of governance. When they're not, these people have been saying already, this is part of the design. This is not a bug, it's a feature. The fact that Black people are killed in a white supremacist US, but now the white supremacy is being exported to other places because whiteness has been able to justify itself through military. But what is it? But I'll say this last thing before asking you again if I can say more. Or you want to move on to another question? What is whiteness? To me, it is, or the idea of whiteness. It is the idea of purity and innocence. That white people, but after they decided like they're no longer European, that they are this innocent group. They are uh, free of whatever stains, social stains. But for them to justify this, they need like for for the for yes as an answer to be strong, you need to be able to say no. People need to be able to say no so that the yes actually means anything. So for whiteness to matter, you need something opposite of it to exist, but also to suppress so that it doesn't challenge whiteness. And that's where blackness comes in. Blackness never existed until whiteness decided that it needed something to legitimate itself. And so conveniently, African people from Africa happen to look like the opposite idea of whiteness. And so the journey begins, the project of the US begins of white supremacy. So these are things on my mind and how people are starting to catch on and trying to figure out the language and the way of thinking about framing these ideas. Medium of choice is music. Not that I am accomplished yet in that form. The things that I've done a lot more of are like talks about this and that, and about like ethnicity and more recently class struggle, trying to connect class um, studies with race and identity, and how white supremacy and white fascism is a thing that should be thought about. But yeah, in terms of art, it's mostly rock music. I'm technically still in this band full of fair of melanated people, with our drummer being the only white person. But even the romance of having like a mostly non-white melanated band, that's one aspect of it. But I realized that skill actually still matters, and sometimes it can be frustrating when like we have this the romance of being non-normative bodies, but like I wish we were better at a basic level at the music at our instruments. So that's been a hurdle that I've come up against with the art, but it's not that big of a deal right now. Green Day is the most obvious example, or like household name when it comes to like punk rock. People know about them. So this Green Day, the lead person, Billy Joe Armstrong, he's my height, 5'7", jet black hair like me. Actually wrote um, a story for Coalition of Asian American Leaders, has their mini Asian stories that was featured last year, and I started my story talking about how I saw myself in Billy Joe Armstrong, just like leaping on the stage and thinking everyone up into this energy of being animated and against corrupt systems. And that was a thing that sustained a spark in me for much of my upbringing in white suburbia, white middle class suburbia. But since then, I went to college. I slowly understood more why. I already knew I hated college, but I started to understand more what made it this this space for class climbing, for people to just like go to college to become good at talking about certain things so that they can like sound smart about issues that lower working class people face, but not actually help uplift them out of those spaces. Start to realize that, and those things inform why I pick music, because I also do improv, not to the same extent, but there's a similarity between punk rock and improv, as I've talked to my friend John, who is the diversity director at Huge Theater, which is an improv theater around here. Is that both are vernacular. Those they're both the language that improv and punk rock music speaks is about the common person, the working lower class people. You don't have to be like really advanced at these crafts to like participate. And I like that idea, that theme of what's the word, of accessibility. Yeah, accessibility and energy, and this lack of pretension that comes with, well, hopefully lack of pretension that comes with both of these art forms. So anything that is about getting people on the same page and enjoying living, coexisting, and celebrating with one another are things that spark me, that animate me. When I have this tension in my body, which comes from seeing hypocrisy or things not lining up, not making sense, and then not, and then not, and unless I solve those things, or at least come up with an argument that I find I can have conviction around, and then like bring it around to people to talk about, I don't feel right. So self-care has looked like coming up with these sort of premises for what is happening around us, and then like talking to people about it. But in terms of like more, not political stuff, it's like playing my guitar, which I got a new guitar. I've had one for 8 years, but I realized I got it because it looked cool. And it sounds good, but it sounds good for more like metal heavy genres. But this new guitar is more classic, more for the punk stuff that I want to get at. It's meant for country rock type stuff, but which translates into punk. So I'm doing that. Watching HBO had some shows free on Hulu for a bit. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna binge watch these shows. But then they took it off, and I realized they were doing that to promote their HBO Max. So they got me. I'm now paying for a discounted version of HBO, and now watching The Wire, The Sopranos, and some other shows that are exclusive to HBO um, that are interesting, and like, I guess good Americans watch these shows. So I'm watching them now, and hanging out with my partner, hanging out with my friend Toya, talking about anime, talking about politics, usually just the recreational stuff. I feel as though like I have these different interests, and like each group has kind of trenches where we talk about these interests. So with my friend Toya, we talk about anime or whatever. With Michelet, I talk about other things, my partner Michelet. And then like I'm trying to find places where I can call a political home, so I can talk about these things without feeling like I'm too intense or missing the mark. There are other things too. I'm also learning how to cook, but that's because Michelet, my partner, is like saying, if you're gonna ask me to help you with these things, I'm gonna pull you in. So learning how to make food too, like egg drop soup and stuff, but mostly serving as an assistant rather than like a lead, which is fine. Is go out, find a political org as well as a hands-on direct action org to participate in and learn around people. Don't get stuck in your house if you can. um I don't know, and listen to some punk music. Find oh, or you, okay, you don't have to enjoy it, but I recommend you looking around your city and seeing what all the black and brown melanated people are doing in terms of arts that's like not conventional. I also do puppetry. I've been learning doing puppetry, improv, punk. Like these are very like not conventional art forms, and there are a lot of melanated people who are doing these arts, and their work is worth supporting and seeking out. So help me by helping them, so that when I am in those spaces, I can be like, oh, hey, you enjoy this too, or you're curious too. I'd love to talk. Let's enjoy this together. Um, Community is great. Community around things that are also like very low visibility right now feels even better, because you feel like you're supporting something that deserves more attention but isn't getting it because of this or that force. So those are a couple things that people can do to help me. They look like being in community with those groups that I mentioned.